Christina Kelly is a freshman at Harvard. She's a great student and a terrific athlete. But she's deathly afraid to do something that millions of Americans find easy.
I am afraid of flying. It's not rational, and I know that, but at the same time, that's definitely just what makes it a phobia. I just can't. I know it's irrational, and I can't do anything about it. It's not that I'm afraid that they're gonna go crashing to the ground or that someone's gonna, try to take it over or anything, but there's not really anything that I can pinpoint as to why I'm afraid, and so I think that kind of adds to the whole overarching fear.
Is fear of flying really irrational? Do we have nothing to fear but fear itself?
I'm scared to death of dogs. I mean, dogs are scary things. They're these sort of strange failed human beings who have all these emotions, and yet they have these enormous teeth at the same time.
I always have that weird sensation when I'm out on a balcony or in a high place where the bottom is accessible, that I'm gonna climb over the railing. That doesn't mean you're going to, or you're even contemplating it, but the fact that you're in a situation where it's possible, it completely unnerves me. Does anyone else have that? Yeah.
I think our bodies are beautifully equipped. Our reptilian brains and our animal tendencies are generous and smart and helpful. And, if my house is shaking in the middle of an earthquake, I hope my body will kick into high adrenaline, grab my dogs and my turtle and grab everything and leave.
There are certain situations that have recurred over evolutionary time over and over again that cause fear. For instance, some nasty animal running towards you very fast and baring its fangs. That's the kind of situation that's happened not too often, but often enough, so that individuals who have what we call a fight-flight response have a lot of advantages over those who say, oh, hello, kitty. It's just not a good thing to be, laid back and mellow when there's a lion coming towards you very quickly. So in the clinic, of course, we call this a panic attack. Panic attack is just identical to a fight-flight response, and it's perfectly normal lots of the time, but not usually in a grocery store.
Many of the fears that we've inherited from our ancestors are perfectly rational. It makes sense to be wary of small spaces and thunderstorms and even snakes, like this fairly large python that's crawling on me now. But sometimes our fear is irrational. It's more intense than it ought to be, or it's in reaction to things that can't really hurt us. These fears are called phobias, and for some people, they're so debilitating that they need help overcoming them. In some cases, anti-anxiety medication can be helpful.
If someone flies a few times a year and they get anxious every time it starts to lift off or typically when it lands, there's nothing wrong with taking a pill for that.
If, on the other hand, you're somebody who has to fly several times a week or, a couple of times a month and it's part of your life, then that may not be the best treatment. Then what you want to do is to actually change your behavior.
Medications haven't worked for Christina Kelly.
With emotions, it's often a paradox, that the more we don't want an emotional state, the more that we experience it, right? And as soon as we allow the emotion to come, a lot of times it kind of starts to diminish more quickly. But
today, Christina Kelly will attempt to board a plane with Todd Farchione, the therapist who is helping her conquer the phobia that's kept her from traveling to visit friends and family.
Just the way it is, whether you feel things or you don't feel things, whether it's bumpy or not bumpy, you can handle that situation. That's the most important thing.
Dr. Farchione uses cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which is extremely effective for people with specific phobias. About 85% of those who try it show significant improvement.
Cognitive behavioral therapy has got a different focus, which is on identifying and correcting dysfunctional thoughts and feelings that make you miserable. So a cognitive behavior therapist is also interested in why you have those thoughts or feelings. He's interested, or she's interested, in basically getting you to identify them and challenge them.
We say you have a little machine buried in your emotional brain, and it's spitting out you know, all of these really scary kinds of thoughts. But because you're the one thinking those thoughts, you tend to believe it. So we have a saying in cognitive therapy, don't believe everything you think.
Christina's therapy started 2 days earlier when she met Dr. Farchione at his office. Most people sign up for a dozen or more treatments over a period of weeks, but Christina opted for a marathon session lasting 3 days.
Well, let me just start by asking you how you did last night.
Good. I tried to explain it all to my family, so I think that helped me kind of like go over it.
So at this point, how are you feeling about taking that flight?
I'm very nervous, and it switches back and forth between like, oh, I can do this, and then suddenly I'll feel like this is really overwhelming and like all at once, and I can't believe I'm doing this.
With panic, what often happens is that it becomes this cycle, that there's a recognition of the physical symptoms, and as a result of that, there's then an increase in the actual physical response, right? An increase in those symptoms, right? So as you're approaching the plane, for instance, if you start having physical feelings, and you say to yourself, like, well, they're not going to go away, or this is going to be really bad, this is going to be an awful trip, this type of thing, it's likely that physiological changes are going to increase, right? So one of the things that we want to do is we want to see if we can't elicit some of these symptoms, in part so that you can see that this is just your body doing what your body should do.
Early in the session, Dr. Farchione asked Christina to do a series of exercises that bring about some of the physical sensations associated with fear, such as dizziness, shortness of breath, and a racing heart. The idea is that once Christina becomes more familiar with these sensations, she will become less afraid of them.
And how similar is that to what you experienced prior to?
Pretty similar, like 6 or 7.
Okay, 6 or 7. And we're going to go into this this flight with no safeties, no avoidance, and essentially confront what it is that you're afraid of. And if that means experiencing those sensations in that situation, again, that's not a problem. Then it's a matter of allowing them to come and allowing them to diminish of their own accord. You know, if something's terrorizing you and bothering you, like let's not run away. Let's go find it, you know?
It was overwhelming.
If you had to rate it on a 0 to 8 point scale, where would you put your anticipatory distress right now?
8.
Okay, so it's pretty high.
Dr. Farchione encouraged Christina not to push the frightening thoughts aside, but instead to let them come to mind so that they can be examined or reappraised.
So what can we come up with as a good alternative here?
It's going to be hard, but it's going to be okay.
So it's going to be hard. I'm going to feel
scared and panicky.
Yeah, good.
One of the key principles behind CBT is that we can change our feelings by changing the thoughts that produce them.
We're not trying to stamp out all bad thoughts. In fact, that might be counterproductive. We're just trying to say, let's look at the alternative. Let's put this in perspective. Let's reappraise this. And oh yeah, you'll continue to have scary thoughts, but you know what? You can live with them. And when they do that, it actually changes brain function. There are changes in the prefrontal cortex, working down into the emotional brain, just by this really working hard on reappraising.
Allowing it to unfold is actually going to be the fastest way for it to diminish, right? But you're still scared, and we still need to do this. Yeah. Okay.
Todd, your return boarding pass is stapled right on the back.
Now comes the decisive moment. Christina will attempt to board a plane. Cognitive behavioral therapy has a cognitive or thinking component, but it also has a behavioral component. We must go out and do the things we're afraid of so that we can learn from experience not to be afraid of them.
The important thing is that reappraisal. It has to be paired with what we call exposure, where people will begin to put themselves in the feared situation under therapeutic guidance and with the appropriate coping mechanisms, where their emotional brain can really begin to learn and become convinced that these terrible things will not happen.
What's wrong with the way that you're feeling right now?
Sucks.
What sucks about it?
It's not comfortable.
What's the most uncomfortable part of it? Is it the heart? The heart rate?
It's feeling like I'm gonna cry. And have been for the last like 3 days. That's not fun.
Okay. So it's feeling as though you might cry, and what is the implications of that? What if you did cry?
I'm not gonna cry.
What if you did?
That just makes it worse.
It does?
Yeah.
Take a moment to review the safety information card in your seat back pocket. Passengers seated in rows 9 and 10 are also asked to review exit row seating requirements.
What we're trying to end up with is somebody who can totally accept the full range of their emotional experience, be aware of what their emotions are doing in the way they're making you feel, the way they're making you think, the way they're making you behave, and accept that and sort of be with it and distance yourself from it. And in so doing, put the emotion in its place.
I still like this idea of you moving around a little bit, so if you could, that'd be great.
Like get up or just?
Yeah, maybe get up. Maybe see if there's anything in the overheads that you might need. If you want, you can put my coat over the overhead or something along those lines.
Okay.
Okay. Do it quickly. I don't want there to be that hesitation. There it is. No. Go ahead and put my coat in the overhead for me, please.
The one moment that really stuck out for me was the moment at which she was willing to get up. She didn't want to do it, but she did it. You know, I mean, she knew it was the right thing to do, and she committed to it. That was the point at which I felt very good about her ability to overcome this problem.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
Slowly but surely.
I'm gonna say actually, I don't think it's as slowly as you might imagine, but you're doing a fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much. I might see you again soon. Thank you.
See you guys. All right.
I like them.
It's like they were nice, right? It's I wish we had like some triumphant music. Now this is where we pull out the iPod and you put on like maybe like the Rocky theme or something like that.
I flew. It's exciting. Not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but I did it. And that's the first time I've gone in a real plane in 2.5 years. And just the fact that I did is empowering. And I'm glad that it was successful. And in the middle, I felt better. So it's good.